A vast majority of people who own a smartphone are by default uploading personal pictures to Google, Apple, Amazon, whomever it may be. Doesn't matter who it is, they don't need it. And that's why we today are going to be setting up probably the very best option for self-hosting a image server, and that is Immich. There are two main things that make Immich a wonderful solution compared to some of the alternative options. And first would be the feature set. When it comes to what it can do, it is very similar to those larger cloud providers that you may be used to, such as a world map with photo locations, a timeline, you can tag people and it can recognize faces, albums, sharing, transcoding capabilities, and a lot more. It's really an incredibly feature-rich piece of software. And second is the mobile application. A vast majority of those features are accessible from the mobile app, and the automatic backup or automatic upload from your photo library works great. So this is going to be my ultimate guide. I have covered this in the past and I have done a guide on this in the past, but that was more of kind of a quick get started guide. We are going to go through the entire Docker Compose stack, make sure everything is enabled, including some of the machine learning stuff. We of course are going to create an account, go through the settings, change everything that I recommend you change, and we are going to go in and make sure that you have external access. And before I talk about a little bit more about the machine that you're going to be using, I do need to give a minute or a couple minutes to thank the sponsor of today's video, Maono and their wireless dynamic microphone. As a creator, my desk is a battleground of cable clutter. I have an XLR interface. I have USBs everywhere for a variety of things. And I'm limited on the placement of this thing because it is a hassle to drag along audio interfaces, stands, and whatnot. And that's where this Mono PD200W comes in. Built on one core idea, cut the cables, go hybrid, free to podcast. Hybrid being the star of the show, as this isn't just a wireless mic, it is a complete studio solution. First, you have 2.4 gigahertz wireless, this little tiny receiver right here. Being that it has wireless capability, it has a battery, so if I am to turn off these LED lights or these RGB lights, for example, it could go 60 hours on a single charge. But oh, don't you worry, it has a single USB-C for plug and play, which is what I'm doing right now here in OBS Studio, and it has an XLR connection, so if you already have an audio interface of preference, you can plug it directly into that and you are good to go. But of course, that flexibility does not mean that the sound is not top tier. Sliding this guy off, we have a 30mm dynamic capsule with a cardioid pattern, capturing 48 kHz at 24-bit with a 82 decimal signal to noise ratio, making your voice very rich and present. You've probably seen this mic. I've been using it quite a bit. This is the Shure MV7 Plus. This coming in MSRP $300. This one coming in at $100. Let's compare them. Peter Piper picked a pepper. Peter Piper picked a pepper. Please subscribe to the TechHut YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the TechHut YouTube channel. Now I have the app here open. It just connected automatically to this microphone. This is the audio from the microphone, but I'm able to control it from my phone, which is pretty cool. Look at that, we got our noise reduction. Let's turn on an AC in the background. There we go. I disabled noise suppression so you can hear it. This is on slight, this is moderate, and then this is going to be aggressive, and then back to moderate, and then back to slight. Here we can see those scene modes. You can change the lights right here, so you see this blue light, increase the brightness. Whoa! And lastly, a very exciting feature is if you are to grab two of these, you could do dual track recording, which is great for podcasters, using the single receiver, which will record the two separate mics on two separate audio tracks, so you don't have that talk crossover, making it awesome for post-production. So this microphone launched just about a week ago. If you're interested in checking it out for yourself, again, there'll be a link in the description. Coming in at $99, it is a great value. So with all that, back to our main content. So here we are, and like I said, I am going to be doing this on Ubuntu. Specifically for my use case, this is a Ubuntu virtual machine on UNRAID. You don't have to use UNRAID, you can use Proxmox. You could just install Ubuntu on a piece of hardware, however you want to do it. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go too far into what hardware and stuff you should use. Just know for some of the machine learning, you might want a GPU or at least an Intel processor with QuickSync. But honestly, those features really aren't that necessary, as if you're just uploading pictures and videos occasionally, transcoding on a CPU will be fine. The main kind of consideration you're going to want to pay attention to is storage. How much actual media are you going to be putting on this thing? The reason I'm doing it on UNRAID is this is where most of my hard drives are. And you can see here, if I go into the VM that I spun up specifically for this, you can see my settings here if you'd like to. 4 cores, 8 gigs of memory max, and I have an UNRAID share dropped directly in here. We'll get more into storage locations and all that, but for me, like, all my media is about 300 gigs, but then I have additional users, which makes my, like, everything just about a terabyte of space. So depending on your usage requirements, that is a huge variable you're going to want to consider. Now again, I'm going to be doing this on Ubuntu. There are timestamps down below, so you could skip to the parts that are more relevant to you, but setting up Ubuntu is pretty easy. We just go ahead, select Ubuntu server. Obviously, I didn't need to do it for this instance, but if you're installing this on hardware, just flash Ubuntu server with a tool such as Etcher or Rufus, depending on your operating system. But we have our default networking there. I'm going to leave that as is because I'll actually change that on my modem. I like to manage all that through there. So DHCP is going to be fine. We're going to skip proxy address for now, and we're going to let it update these mirrors. Once we have the done option, we could proceed. And now here we have the choice to set this up in an LVM group. Generally, that's recommended, but I usually skip that. I'll put a link down below so you can read a little bit more about that if you'd like to. I like to go with the good old standard partition schemes. My boot disk size is about 128 gigs. Again, that's because my actual images are going to be stored on a network share. So all that looks good. I'm going to say done. This will destroy any data on the drive. I'm fine with that. Let's continue. And now you just fill all this out, in which you can see I named it just image because this VM is going to be specifically dedicated to being an image server or Immich server. Ubuntu Pro, we could skip that for now. It's technically free for most people. But one thing for sure is we're going to want to install an OpenSSH server and then go done. If you have an SSH key, you can add that now. I am not going to install any of these snap packages, so I'm going to skip them all, go done, and now let it do what it needs to do. All right, there we go. When we have the option to reboot, we are going to do so. And just like that, we're good to go. So I'm just going to close this out and just kill the VM real fast. So kill it, force it. And then this is basically the equivalent of unplugging your USB. So no matter what you're on, you're going to want to get rid of the live ISO so it doesn't boot into that. And there we go. So let's update and dive on in. So we'll start her up here. And just something I'm going to do, and again, this is kind of optional, would recommend it though, is setting a static IP within your router. So to see the current IP address, we could just go IPA. You can see mine right there, 10.173.10.190. So I would navigate to my router. And of course, depending on what you're running, this is going to look a little bit different for you. But no matter what you're running, you're going to want to go to your client devices. And then from there, you can add a fixed IP address. And I'm going to have this one in 31 as immich.lan. Refer to the manual or just look up how to do this with whatever model of modem, router, whatever that you have. So I'm going to apply those changes. There we go. Hey, there we go. We have our static IP address. So now, first thing we always do when we fire up a new Linux machine is update everything. So a sudo apt update and a sudo apt upgrade. Yes to everything. Let's do it. Give that a little bit of time. Shouldn't be too much going on. And there we go. So I'm actually going to close this out and we're going to proceed in a actual terminal. Go to the Docker or 7 basics for Docker. And here we have a couple commands that we can run. We have this curl to go ahead and grab Docker itself. We will SSH into our terminal. So I should be able to just use immich.lan at this point. Yes. Or if you didn't set that up, use the IP address. Now we are going to drop this on in and we will see it right there. So then we can run a sudo sh get docker, type in our password, and this is going to install absolutely everything that we're going to be needing, including docker-compose and all of that. So there we go. And another thing we're going to want to do is this right here, manage Docker as a non-root user. The script automatically adds the group, but if we just grab this user mod command here, drop it in, and then grab new group Docker, drop it in. Now our user doesn't have to do sudo every time we run a command in Docker. So that right there is the bulk of the prerequisites. So now we're going to head over to the Immich documentation. Docker Compose is actually the recommended way to install this. So first we're going to want to get the Docker Compose YAML and the environmental variable file. For these ones, since we have our terminal ready here, you don't click on them. We are going to copy the link and then we can run. Actually, let's throw this in a new folder. So I'm going to make directory. I'm going to call it Immich, and this is going to house all of our Docker stuff. So we will go into that folder, and now I will wget the link to the compose YAML, and then we will do the same thing with this environmental variable file. So we will wget that as well. Now, if I list, you could see that we're going to want to change the example. So if I do mv example.env to just .env, that's what it's actually going to want. And now we can see everything right there. So the first thing we're going to want to play around with is the actual environmental variables file. And to do that, I'm a fan rather of Nano. So we're going to type in nano.env, hit enter. Here we're going to want to change some things. So the default upload location is going to be a library folder in a subfolder of the folder that you have your image or Immich Docker stuff in. If you plan on having this all on the root file system, this is going to be perfect, but I do not. So I'm going to put mine in images, and that's a root file directory that I already have on my system as it's an UNRAID share. For the database location, I'm just going to keep that as is. Postgres right into the same image folder is going to be perfect. We can set a time zone, which we'll do. We'll just uncomment this. You're going to want to change this to your actual time zone. So mine is going to be America, Los Angeles. Immich version 2 is the latest one. They've been making substantial progress every single time they update it. It's a bunch of cool stuff. Right here we have our password, so I'm actually going to want to change this. So basically I will change it. I'm gonna hit Control-0 to save this and then exit out. So generated that, added it in, we're good to go. Real quick, my own little work, I just want to make sure that everything is looking good. We want to vert.io mode. My bad. UNRAID probs, images. There we go. See if that works. I need to actually mount the thing. Fix this to images, not image. Make the images directory, not that one. We're going to edit this location to mount images, reload our daemon, and then mount all. So if I go to mount images, let's actually LL this. There we go, and it has the proper user schemes. Nice. Looking good. In the documentation, you have more environmental variables here if you want to go ahead and look at it, such as the log level, a path to a specific configuration file, no color, you can customize the cores, just a lot of stuff, included trusted proxies here, which we'll talk about that a little bit more once we get to that part. So if I nano into our Docker Compose YAML, we have a lot going on in here. Technically, as is, you could just spin it up and everything should work for the most part. And there's a lot of things in here you're going to want to make sure to not change, such as these right here are in the environmental variables. So you can see the environmental variable file with what it depends on. So database and Redis. We have machine learning right here. So there's a bunch of variables to change there. You're going to want to leave this and database alone for the most part. My database is on my root file system, which in turn is going to be on an SSD. If your root file system is on a hard drive, you're going to want to uncomment this and change it to HDD. But for my setup, I am not going to need to worry about that. And again, really don't change anything that have those environmental variables. And you can see there's just one volume of cache. Now, we are going to want to set up some things primarily to do with quick sync in my case. If you're using NVIDIA or AMD, you're just going to want to kind of change some things depending on that. And we're going to want to grab this extends file. So I'm going to save what I have so far, exit out. And over here, this is their GitHub. I was kind of looking at the Compose YAML. And this right here is the hardware transcoding one. So if we open that up and right click on raw, copy the link, we can wget that right in here. So paste that in, there we go. Now if I ls, you can see it right there. And we are going to want to edit it. So I have quick sync. I don't think I have it enabled right now. So if I do ls dev dri, I might cd. If you're on Proxmox, you just enable that in your options, your hardware options. If you're on hardware, you're good to go. But if we nano into that file, you can see the services. We have CPU, NVIDIA Quick Sync, which here is our device. I might need to do a configuration change because it just says card 1. I'm not too sure yet. I'll figure that out. RKMMP, and we have VAPI, VAPI WSL, lots of fun stuff. So let's get out of there and actually make it so it can read this. So let's nano back into our Docker Compose, and we're going to want to go to extends here and uncomment it. So it's 2 backspaces each. And then you set the actual service that you want to use right here. So under service, I am going to go with quick sync. Obviously change it to whatever suits your use case. And I do believe there's somewhere else we want to do this under machine learning. They're going to want a slightly different file. So let's go ahead and output this and then grab the machine learning file, which is going to be right here, ML. So open that up. And then here we're going to want to right click on raw, copy that link, and again, grab this. And then if I nano into it, hardware, ML, just like that, you could see the same kind of setup we got going on. It just adds all these devices. It's all the configurations kind of predefined for whatever GPU that you're going to be using to help you out with this. For me, I do believe I am going to be using this one right here, Open VINO, which that is the Intel one. So I'll back out of there. We're going to again jump into our Compose and go back down to the machine learning section. Here it gives us the instructions right on in there. So we will go over, and right after release, I'm going to add a dash and paste in what I want, which is open VINO. And then we are going to want to uncomment the hardware acceleration stuff just like we did up above. So it'll look a little something like this. And we will switch this to open VINO. And I believe all of that looks good. I'm just going to get rid of some lines to make it look prettier on my end. And we're good. We're good to go. So let's output that. Let's do a quick Hail Mary and just set the graphics card right there, just like that. I'm not going to be using no VNC anyways, so let's update that. Start her up, log back in. Ooh, I think it worked. Easy peasy. Nice. Let's go. All right. In theory, we can fire this guy up. So I'm going to CD, and first I'm going to do this without detaching it, so that way we can see if there's any like substantial errors. So docker compose up, just like that. Hit enter, and we will see. When spinning up something like this, it's important to read and kind of understand what the logs are doing. And here it goes. It's flying. Oh, look at that. Immich microservices is running. So 2283, just like that. Hey, welcome to Immich. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Putting in all of our important information here, putting in my full name and clicking sign up. And then just like that, we're in welcome Brandon Hawkins. So we're going to run through this, and there are some important things to change. We're going to keep this in dark mode for now. For language, English is good. We are going to keep the map and the version check. So let's go over to user privacy, Google Cast. I'm never going to use that. If you are, you can enable it here. But let's go to storage template. And this is something that is actually important. We're going to use a user-defined template. Let's enable this. Here we have a ton of information. Basically, what this will do is make it kind of a user-friendly organization system within the actual file structure. So customize this to how you see fit for your specific preferences. The only thing I'm really going to change here is I'm going to get rid of the year within the year folder. And usually I get rid of the day too, and I just have everything in folders by month. But what I think I am going to do is customize the month a little bit just so it looks a little prettier. So if I do something like this, it's going to have the numerical value and then a letter value. And we'll do a new directory here, and I'll just leave it like that. We're not going to go ahead and add a day in there. So we'll have a folder per month. I don't take a crazy amount of pictures, so this will be okay. So let's add the day here, do a dash, and that should be good. And maybe the month, mine as well. So if I ever move it anywhere, every single file at least has the date associated with the actual file name. So now we'll go over to backups. Of course, always a 3-2-1 backup strategy is always recommended. That means have 2 copies on site on separate machines and have another copy off site somewhere else. I'm going to do a video on that in the near future, so do subscribe so you don't miss that. And from there, we could go to the mobile app. I'm going to skip this for now. We will grab it, but let's go done. And there we go. We're looking good. Now, another thing we want to do is go back into the administration settings, and we're going to kind of go through this real fast. So under settings, we have authentication settings. So you can set up extra authorization if you'd like to there. And a lot of these settings are really not going to want to change. Under image settings, it will generate thumbnails for basically all your media, so you can set exactly how you want that to look, what you want it to be. For example, I don't like WebP at all for any situation, so I will change that to JPEG, and you could change the resolution too if you'd like, but usually 250p for a thumbnail is going to be fine, as well as 80. And then we have preview settings. So when you actually open the image within Immich, it's not going to be the full raw image. They will transcode another version specifically for this. And this one default is 1440p. And honestly, for me, I could go 1080, save a little bit of space. If I download the actual content, it's going to be full quality. And full size image settings, we're not going to enable this. This will just transcode another version at the full resolution, but you can change the formatting as well as the quality of this, and you could read more about that there. All this looks good. We're going to save it. And you can see some stuff going on back here. No errors or anything significant as of yet, so that's very good. Now here we have job settings. Well, a job is things that it's doing in the background, such as generating those thumbnails, doing face detection, things like that. So you can set concurrencies. If you notice that it's using like a whole bunch of resources when it does a specific thing, you can drop it down, such as if face detection is just sucking system resources, you could set that to 1 if you'd like to. And that's just an example of a change that you could do there. Transcode video, for example, is 1. That's going to be okay. And honestly, for me, all that default is perfect. We have external library. So this is actually a pretty cool feature. You can add external libraries just by mounting it in that docker-compose file, and we do have library watching, in which it can import things into Immich that aren't necessarily directly in which it will actually import things that are in like different directories or whatever directly into Immich. A use case for this, maybe you have an actual camera with an SD card, you mount up an external library, so when you drag and drop your files from your SD card, you can automatically have Immich do it that way. Me personally, I just drag and drop things into the web UI. And all these features do have these rather comprehensive documentation pages, so if you're interested in something, I do recommend you check those out. So going on, we have a logging. Probably just keep that as is. If you want more, you can enable that as well. Machine learning settings. It uses Compose, so by default we have this. If you do want to run the machine learning container on a separate machine that maybe has better hardware than you specifically have Immich installed on, that is an option as well, so that is how you would change the actual URL for that. But then you have a lot of the specific settings when it comes to machine learning, such as the models and everything you'd want to use for like facial recognition, duplication detection, smart search, and all of that. And all these are the default models. I've never changed them, nor have I had any problems with them. But if I go over here under hardware accelerated learning, you can learn a lot about it, including setting everything up. And specifically, if I go all the way down here, some tips and tricks that talks about running different models. Now, map and GPS is very important. You can change the actual style here if you'd like to, and you have your reverse geocoding settings so you can enable or disable that if you'd like to. And you can, of course, learn more about that in the documentation. Now, for multimedia settings, you can actually export the data for the facial recognition stuff. That's something I'm not going to enable. I don't find it necessary at all. Frankly, it's kind of weird. Nightly tasks, so it's going to do everything at midnight. If you're a night owl, work graveyard, whatever, you might want to change that so it's doing all this when you're not actually using the platform. And then of course there's notification settings, so you can actually enable email notifications, but you're going to have a host and all that. This is quite helpful for a variety of things, such as if you have quite a few different people that are on your server, you could do welcome emails, invite, album templates, and so forth. Well, not so forth, that's about it. And of course, we have a welcome message. For storage templates, we kind of already played with this with the initial setup, but this is where you could go back to and change it. Do note, try not to change this too much, and definitely back up if you change it, if you already have media on there. And when you do change it, you're gonna have to run a storage migration job, which here is all the jobs. We'll actually get back to that in just a sec. But if I scroll back down, we have theme settings, so you can add custom CSS, trash, specific delete delay settings for users, version check, and then last but not least, video transcode settings with a whole bunch of stuff here, including the encoding options, so you could set exactly how you want video to be encoded on the server. Of course, this is using a FFmpeg on the back end. And there are advanced stuff, but we're not going to get too far into that. And that is the general settings. Now, when it comes to the users, you can see here for the specific users how many photos they have, videos, storage space. You can see a lot of features, whether if they're enabled or disabled, the specific ID for that user, and you can edit the user directly right here, but it's just basic admin settings. If I go to my user and go to account settings, this is where I can actually change things that are relevant to me as a user. And if I went through every single one like I did the server settings, this would take a long time because there are quite a few different options, including adding a PIN code, changing passwords, specific notification settings. You have features right here. So I can enable folder view if I wanted to, which actually I kind of like that. So let's go ahead and do it, save it. And then over here you see folders, specific download settings. You have your API keys for connecting it to other platforms, usage, and your actual account stuff right here. Now, jobs. If I go back over to administration, jobs again is what's running in the background. So right now it's not really going to do anything because I have no media at all, but you could force it to start things. You could force it to do facial recognition. This is where you do the template storage migration, but we can see what it's doing, when it's doing it, and if it's waiting to do something. We have our full server stats there. And yeah, everything looks to be set up perfect. So what I'm going to do real quick, go ahead and set up some remote access. And since I have a task running, I'm going to do NetBird first. So what I'm going to do is shut down this with Control C. And then it's going to go ahead and stop everything. And now we want to add, and then before I set up or show you how to set up a proxy, I'm going to show you how I'm actually going to do it. And that is setting it up with NetBird for access. If you already have a NetBird peer on your system, you could set that up as a routing peer and just access it that way. But real quick, what I'm going to do is go to NetBird. If you didn't already see the kind of disclaimer, I work for NetBird, so I'm biased for this or towards this platform. But I am going to generate a new setup key for this specific VM. This is Immich, just like that. This is going to technically be media, so we're assigning it a group for this machine. It's in a group with other machines that are titled media, such as like my Plex server, basically anything my family can access. So, and I'll show you the access policy. If I create a setup key, install NetBird, let's go ahead and drop this in here, just like that. And when it is done, we could drop in our setup key, easy as that. I have a full video on NetBird. I do recommend you check it out. But now that we are connected to NetBird, I am going to go over to access control and policies. And you can see right here, my media server policy, my family has access to media. And I'm going to go ahead and throw myself in there as well because I am the admin. And Immich is on port 2283. So all I do is add the port 2283 like that. I don't need this range. That was just an example. So then if I save those changes, I can, in theory, connect to my phone's hotspot here, and I should still be able to access this off the network. So if I go to peers and make sure I'm connected, which it looks like I am, we have our Immich machine, so I can just copy this NetBird DNS name, give that a copy. Let's spin up Immich. So docker-compose up. This time we'll do it detached. There we go. So now I have a network route, so I can use or I have a LAN defined as a resource, so I can technically just use this IP address. Alternatively, I can connect with the NetBird peer address, which is this one right here. So if I just give this a little edit like that, well, yeah, look at that. We are securely remotely connected with NetBird. Now you can see I have no files here, but I do have quite a bit of photos that I need to upload, and I could drag and drop everything, but that'd be a slow, tedious process. So what I'm actually going to do is use something called immich-go. This is a great tool, and what I'm going to do real quick is show you how to get it up and going. I will note if you're using Google Takeout, I'll link down below to a resource that is very helpful, because if you use Google Takeout, it does this wonderful, beautiful thing where it doesn't include the metadata directly in the pictures. It extracts it for some reason to a separate file. I hate it so much. What we're going to need is a new API token. So we can go over to our Immich instance, go over to our profile. So let's click on our profile, go to account settings, and then under account or not account, we're going to want to go to, where is it? API keys, new API key. We're just going to give it everything. And then we are going to create that API key. And I'm just going to keep it right here. And now for the installation. It does have some pre-built binaries for various systems, which is very, very nice. So we are going to go to the latest release, and I am going to grab the macOS ARM version right here, open her up, and there it is. So now you can see we have some examples. We're going to use this first one right here, in which we upload. You can also use this to archive as well. So I'm going to copy this, and then I need to cd into this directory from a local terminal. So let's go terminal, shell, open up a new tab, and we can cd into our downloads, and then the name of this file, which is going to be immich-go. Just like that. Drop in the command, and since I'm running it just off of the directory because I'm not going to be using this much anymore, I should just be able to add a ./ in front. But let's start off by pasting in our API key, which I put right over here. So paste that in. Path to photos is going to be this directory right in here, which we'll see if this SMB link works. I've never done it this way before. There we go. And last but not least, we are going to change this IP address to our actual server IP. And finally, / in the front. See if that works. Ooh, we're going to want to allow it. Apple, how dare you? Security. We are going to allow anyways. And let's go ahead and try that again, shall we? Open anyway. Option Command C. See if that works. Oh, there we go. We got the volume mount. All right, enter. Allow. Whoa, there it goes. Nice. It's going pretty quick too. Look at that. Well, that's the input analysis. This is uploading over here. Not as quick as I would have preferred. And oh boy, is it going in a... All right, this is gonna take a minute. But anyways, we can see it's working. We got errors there because it's gonna take a bit for it to generate the thumbnails and all that. But we're looking good. Hey, look, the thumbnails are generating. Perfect. We're just going to let that do what it needs to do. And I was going to go into a lot more, but again, this video is getting really long. So I will probably do a follow-up video in which I cover things like external libraries, getting a little bit more deeper into the configuration of the machine learning models and workers and all that. So do subscribe so you don't miss that video. And with all that, I do hope you enjoy your new Immich setup. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.